There's one thing that we can all count on, and that's change. Change is a part of life. Not only does the world around us change, we react, and we adjust. Hi, I'm Michelle Suskauer, and welcome to Insure Wealth. Today, we want to talk to you about what you can do to take advantage of some of those changes. And with us again today to help us understand is our host, our expert, and our insurance advisor, Howard Kaye. Welcome, Howard.
Thank you, Michelle.
Now, so many people are afraid of change. They don't even want to think about it, even if it can help them or their heirs or their favorite charities. So what do you have to say to them?
Well, Michelle, if 30 years ago you bought the best television set made and never got a new one, even as color, high definition, and 3D changed the TV set, you'd still be looking at a black and white 40 or 50-pound table model that maybe is 19 inches. And if 20 or 25 years ago you bought the most advanced car you could get, you'd be still trying to start a rattling, maybe rusted gas guzzler and not have the efficient and luxurious cars you can get today. Well, the same is true in my area of expertise, life insurance. If 5 or 10 years ago you bought a whole life or universal life insurance policy, which most probably made sense at that time, it might not make as much sense today. Now, what's changed? Many things: interest rates, guarantees, cost of premiums, and the amount of death benefit that you may have thought was enough, but realize you may need more. So, Michelle, let me just add here that I do not provide tax or legal advice. I am not a financial advisor. I know life insurance. I know it inside and out. And that is what I am giving people information about. Information that I believe can be very important and helpful to them so that they can make wise decisions.
Thank you, Howard. Now, I've heard that maybe like cars, you can trade in life insurance policies. Is that true?
Yes. Now, I don't want to use cars as the example necessarily,
Okay.
but yes, you can exchange an old universal life insurance policy for a new one, which may be guaranteed. It may have a longer duration. It may have a higher death benefit, and it may have reduced premiums.
So how could I find out about that?
Well, I'll tell you, it's a very simple yet important process to take. But just review your policy. Make sure it satisfies the need for which you originally bought it. And don't be afraid to do this, because it doesn't cost you anything to get the information and knowledge.
Well, I mean, that makes sense to me. So first, let our viewers know, for more information, 561-417-5883 and online at insurewealthtv.com. So what do we need to know?
Well, think of it this way. When most of you get your brokerage statements each month, I'm sure you take them out, you look at them carefully, you study every aspect of it. You want to make sure that you know everything about what and how your investments are doing. That is really important, and you do it. But when you get your life insurance statement annually, what do most people do? Typically, they take a quick look at it, and then they tear it up or throw it in the drawer. If there's a premium notice with it, they'll rip that, send a check in. But they really don't understand what they're doing. They didn't take the time to study it. The statement, like I said, will go into your drawer, your file, or even the trash can, depending upon who you are. And you don't think about it until when? Till the next year when you get another statement. So if you're really lucky, the agent who sold you the policy will call you to discuss it and update you on what may work better for you if there's something that's new and available. But probably it doesn't happen most of the time, if I were to take a guess. Most people do not hear from their professionals in this industry. I can't tell you the reason why, but it's very important that you do stay on top of these policies each year. And it's even if you have to be the one to make that phone call to your agent, go ahead and do that.
I mean, I know that's the way I am. I mean, I'm guilty of that as well, just sort of not really reviewing it and putting it away, briefly glancing at it. So if you want an annual life insurance checkup, what questions should you ask?
Well, based on how I've done these kinds of annual checkups for approximately 30 years now, here's what you need to ask and need to know. There are 8 basic questions, give or take 1 or 2. First, is the policy the most cost-effective that you can get? can premiums be reduced or even eliminated?
You mean I might not even be able to, I might not even have to pay an annual premium?
Well, it depends. What most people don't realize is they've built up significant cash values in their insurance policies. And quite often we're able to show somebody how to take the money from one policy and move it into another while reducing what the annual premium is, or for the same money, possibly increasing the death benefit.
Well, I'd certainly want to know that. What else?
Well, you need to know if the death benefit on the policy is sufficient to meet your original goals and what your current needs are. A lot probably has changed since you first bought the policy.
Right.
So you need to find out, for example, whether you may be able to increase your death benefit for your heirs. Policies have, like I told you, a nice surrender value, many of them from the past, and this money can be used, like I said, in a new policy to possibly increase the death benefit. Also, as we just discussed, needs may have changed. When people bought a policy 10 years ago, there were different estate tax exemptions than what currently exists today. Many people believe that since the exemptions are higher, they don't need to have that same amount of life insurance. They want to reduce it. I will be the first to share with them why, aside from estate tax planning, it's so important to maintain that. But if someone is looking to reduce that benefit, again, these are things that need to be discussed with the agent. Also, many of these policies may have a specified death benefit and a specified annual premium, but what you don't realize is the policy may terminate prior to its maturity or before one of the insureds or both insureds, if it's a last-to-die policy, before they pass away. So for this, you need to know, again, what your cash value is. You need to know whether the amount of premium that you're paying as well as that cash value is enough to support your existing death benefit forever, and can that same premium and cash value support in a new policy a greater death benefit while maintaining the same duration or even a longer duration.
Now, I've heard about people selling their life insurance policies. First of all, why would people do that, and how do they do that?
Well, Michelle, you can sell a life insurance policy into what we will call the secondary market. These are to institutional investment firms. And what it's called is a life settlement sale. Now, there are a number of reasons why somebody might consider doing that. First, a person may not have the money available to pay the premiums,
right,
and needs that extra cash flow. So, in this case, they may go for a life settlement, because if they sell the policy, they may be able to get more than what their current cash surrender value is. If they can't get more than what their current cash surrender value is, then there'd be no reason to sell it. But as an example, let's say somebody had a $1 million policy with a $50,000 cash value and premiums of $10,000 a year that they don't want to pay. If they went about selling it, and if they were of the proper ages, because this, you do need to have shortened life expectancy.
Right, right.
So if people are in their 70s or 80s, they don't want to keep that policy, they know they can cancel it and get $50,000 back. But if they sell it, maybe they'll get 80, maybe they'll get 100, maybe 120. Again, if it's more than what they can surrender that policy for, then it's worth looking into the life settlement market.
Well, there's a lot to know. I mean, is there more?
Oh, yes, there's much more. One of the questions that you need to have answered as part of your regular policy review is whether your policy is owned in the most tax-efficient manner. Now, this may seem very obvious to everyone, but you'll want to check whether your original ownership and beneficiary designations are up to date. And what I mean by that is many people had bought policies for estate planning purposes. Well, these policies should be owned by an irrevocable life insurance trust or by the children who would be the beneficiaries as well. Why is that? Because you want the policy outside of your estate. You, the insureds, let's say the parents, are not looking to increase the value of your estate, which the life insurance would do if you were the owners. So if you now review your policy and you see that you are the owners, something needs to be done.
Right.
Either it needs to be transferred to, like I said, an irrevocable life insurance trust, or to your children as owners, Or you may even consider, again, seeing if we can improve upon that policy. Because if you're able, with your agent, to improve that policy, it cleans up a mess that may have been created. What do I mean by that? If you transfer a policy, now that it's been in force for however many years it has been, if you transfer that ownership to the children or to this irrevocable trust, there's what they call a 3-year contemplation of death rule.
And what's that?
What it means is you must live for 3 years. Otherwise, the government will the IRS will put that money back into your estate. So an alternative to that would be, if we can beat the policy with a new policy, you don't have to go through that 3-year contemplation of death rule. You'd cancel the old policy, gift the money over, and then buy the new policy. So these are little things that you're not going to realize until you have a professional sit with you. And again, whether it's your own agent or anyone else,
Right.
somebody must sit with you to review these things and see if everything is on course as it originally was.
Well, the more I hear you, the more I know that a regular policy review is not just a good idea, it's absolutely necessary.
Yes, it is. And here are 2 more reasons you need to know. Number 1, how long will your policy last based on current assumptions? Now, what does that mean? What it means is, when you bought the policies, let's say you were 65 years of age, and you thought the policy based on your premium is going to last forever. But during this policy review, based on the interest rates that are being used as an assumption on the policy, it only appears that it's going to last for 24 years, which would make you 89 years of age. If that's the case, you're shocked, because you thought these premiums were going to carry the policy forever. So a way to combat that is to see, number 1, how much more money do you need to pay into your existing policy to extend the duration, let's say to age 100? Or, again, can you possibly switch the policy to a new policy with the same death benefit, the same premiums, but have a longer duration? Let me give you one example on this. Recently, I had a client in my office who had bought a policy from another broker many, many years ago, and they are paying $39,000 a year. When the premium was supposed to carry a $3 million death benefit through the age of 90 on 2 people, this was what we call a last to die policy.
Okay.
That's how it was originally structured. But going through this review now, what took place was they found that the policy was only lasting through their ages of 82 and a half to 83. Well, that became a very major concern, because we wanted to make sure that policy was going to last longer. So here were the options. They could stay with their existing company, and instead of paying the $39,000, they'd have to pay $76,000 a year.
Wow.
To increase it back up to age 90. If they wanted to go to age 95, I think it was somewhere around $90,000 a year. As opposed to, they could switch to a new policy, and instead of going through age 82 and a half or 83, by transferring the cash surrender value to the new company, they were able to put their policy back on track to age 90 for $40,000 a year, just around where they were paying. And if they wanted to increase it through age 95, instead of paying this $90,000 premium that the original company said, they would only have to pay around $57,000 to $60,000.
I mean, that's a tremendous savings that they would not have known about if they did not have a checkup of where they are, where their status is. You just go on paying these exorbitant amounts, and it doesn't put you in the position that you need to be in.
Right, and that's why a review is necessary. Also, the financial stability of your insurance company. The life insurance industry puts out ratings on insurance companies, and you really should find out how yours is rated. This includes AM Best, who are the insurance analysts, S&P, there is the Weiss, and there's also something called a Comdex report, where it takes all of the insurance companies and based on all the ratings and gives them a number out of 100, so you can see what percentage of companies they exceed based on their ratings. And this is very important so you are comfortable with the company that you own, so that you know that you have the financial stability, or the company has the financial stability that you would expect them to have.
It's a lot of questions and a lot of information. So let me remind our viewers, for more information, 561-417-5883 and online at insurewealthtv.com. Now, Howard, can you give us some examples of what you've been talking about?
Sure, let me give you a few more. Here's a man, we're going to call him Dr. Jefferson, 65 years old. Now, when he was 30, about 35 years ago, he bought a number of policies on himself. The beneficiaries were his wife and his young children, of course. Now, things have changed dramatically over the last 35 years. His net worth is far greater than it was back then, and his wife really doesn't need the death benefit anymore. But because he's been paying premiums all these years, he just continues to pay the premiums. But what his real concern now is not how much money his wife would receive on his demise from life insurance, because he has built up plenty of assets. Now his concern has shifted towards estate planning. Why? Because he knows that the size of his estate, if he and his wife pass away and the money goes to the children, it will be subject to a very large estate tax. And at the end of the day, the kids may only end up with 50 or 55% of all the assets that he's worked for a lifetime to accumulate. So what he does is gets into a thorough life insurance policy evaluation. And here is what he finds out. He had a death benefit of $3 million, and he was still paying $25,000 a year in premiums. The cash value in the policy totaled $750,000. He surrendered the policy. He did not have to pay any taxes. Why? Because the cost basis, what he put into the policy, was greater than what his cash surrender value was.
Okay.
He then used that money, the cash surrender value, to buy a new policy owned by an irrevocable life insurance trust.
What you were talking about before.
Correct. That's a guaranteed, what we call last to die universal life policy on his wife and himself. Now, what do I mean by a last to die policy? A policy that pays off when both people pass away. And why is this important? Because it's the lowest priced type of policy, because two people take longer to pass away than one person does. And number two, the children don't need the money until both pass away, because that's when the estate taxes are due. Now, by making this change, the new policy has a death benefit of $5 million.
Much better.
In fact, $5.3 million, and the policy runs through their ages of 95, actually his wife's age of 95, but this was the best part. He doesn't have to pay any more premiums on the policy.
Wow.
Now, he could have bought larger amounts of insurance if he wanted to still pay the $25,000, but he felt that that $5.3 million was sufficient to cover the taxes, and this way he had an extra $25,000 a year in his pocket.
Which is fantastic, and it makes a big difference not only to him but to anybody. It's a lot of money.
Absolutely.
Now you could say for Dr. Jefferson, the policy review was exactly what the doctor ordered. Bad joke. Now, what other examples do you have?
Yes, that's true. Let's look at a 60-year-old woman who lives in New Jersey. In keeping with our naming the people we use in our examples after presidents, let's call...
Oh, that's where you got them from.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Let's call this woman Mrs. Adams.
Mrs. Adams.
Now, Mrs. Adams has done well as a magazine editor, and her net worth is approximately $6 million. Now, that includes a $2 million IRA. Her health is excellent. She has no life insurance, but she wants to protect her children from future taxes after she passes away. Well, if she were to die this year, between federal estate tax, New Jersey estate tax, federal and state income taxes due to the retirement plan,
a lot of
her
taxes.
tax liability would be more than $1.3 million. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if it was even higher than that.
That's
However,
crazy. Okay.
if she lived another 25 years until she was 85, and assuming a 5% rate of growth, her total tax exposure would be more than $6 million. Now think about that. That's equal to what her total net worth is today. So after reviewing her situation, she decides to buy a universal life insurance policy with a tax-free death benefit of $5 million. She would have to pay an annual premium of approximately $60,000 each year, but the policy would be guaranteed forever. Now, it may sound like a lot of money to many people, but realize something. It's a very small amount to pay to protect her children from future taxes.
Well, her tax liability is incredibly large.
Correct.
So,
but this is what happens. People don't realize they're worth something today, but they're not dying today. And what happens over the next 20 or 25 years? So she's no different than many others.
right.
But the point is, the first reaction would be, or was, this is a lot of money to pay. And the first answer is, well, no, it's not, because this is the price you pay to protect your loved ones, in this case, your children. On the other hand, $60,000 a year to buy this amount of insurance is phenomenal. Where else can she put that $60,000 each year and create that type of death benefit?
She can't.
She can't.
No.
The question becomes, in my opinion at least, the question becomes, does she have the cash flow to accommodate this amount of money and gift it to her children each year so that this trust can buy the policy?
Mrs. Adams really looked out for her children's best interests so that they don't have to pay those high estate taxes. That's a really good move.
Yeah, she did a great job. But our next example, Michelle, is a gentleman who's 80 years old. We're going to call him Mr. Lincoln. His first name is not Abe, so let's not get confused here. 25 years ago, he bought a whole life policy. His death benefit now, based on the dividends and all, is approximately $5,755.8 million. The policy had no premiums to pay, or no more premiums to pay from what he originally started paying back then. But listen to this. Because the policy has been in effect so long and the dividends that he was making were so tremendous, the cash surrender of the value of the policy was over $5 million. Now, what that means is he doesn't have to die to get $5 million. So what does he really get at death? Well, in this example, he would end up with $5.8 million, let's say. So it's only $800,000. Is that a good deal? Probably not the best. So what did we look to do? Using a 1035 tax-free exchange, Mr. Lincoln was able to transfer over $5 million of cash value from the old policy into a new universal life insurance policy with a death benefit now of $7 million. The policy is going to last through his age of 100, which is what he wanted. And based on the assumptions today, which are a much lower dividend and interest assumption because interest rates are so low, that policy does not need any premiums to be paid. The $5 million that was transferred over from the old company to the new was sufficient to keep that $7 million in force. Now, there's two messages here. Number one, review your old policies. See if you can increase the death benefit without any additional outlay. The second message is, this was an 80-year-old gentleman. 80 years old is not too old to be looking at life insurance or to be reviewing your policy and seeing if there's a better alternative. It's amazing to me that so many people now who have reached this age have maintained tremendous health. So as long as you don't have any major health issues such as heart problems, cancer, diabetes, things of that nature, it is something that you must look into and see how to optimize that money that's sitting within those policies to create more for your family.
Very nice. Now, I know you have one more example for us, and one which shows really how important it is to have what we've been talking about, which is a regular policy review.
Right. We'll go through this quickly. For our last hypothetical case study, let's call our subject Mr. Washington after our first president. Now, Mr. Washington's 76 years old. He's not in the best of health, but he's amassed a $15 million estate and owns an old $3 million policy. He pays an annual premium of $23,000. Now, during the policy review, he could see that in 2 years, his premiums, which he's had to pay each year, would jump from $23,000 to $90,000
Wow.
each year. The cash value of the policy is $20,000, and his wife is the beneficiary. So our life insurance review turned up some real problems. Ownership and beneficiary designation were not correct, and the premiums were too high. So Mr. Washington used the life settlement market to sell his policy, and he accepted an offer of $500,000 for that policy.
So what did he do with that?
Well, since his health was a problem, he bought a trust-owned life insurance policy on his wife, who was only 68 years old.
Okay.
And he used the $500,000 that he received through the life settlement as the initial premium on a $3 million policy, but his annual premium is now only $18,000, which is a lot less than the $23,000 he was paying and a whole lot less than the $90,000 he was going to have to pay.
Well, bottom line here, it's clear. It makes sense, and it may save a tremendous amount of money to have a regular policy review, probably sooner rather than later. So for more information, 561-417-5883 and online at insurewealthtv.com. Howard, thanks so much for this really, really helpful information and letting us know how important it is to everyone and their families to have a regular policy checkup.
Well, Michelle, you're welcome. It's always good to be here, and let me repeat, as you think about what your legacy will be for your heirs and your favorite charities, this kind of checkup, a life insurance evaluation, can be so important to your financial health, and most importantly, your peace of mind.
Thanks again, Howard. And for more information, 561-417-5883 and online at insurewealthtv.com. I'm Michelle Suskauer, inviting you to join us again next Saturday at 5:30. So long.